Hare Krishna, dear devotees, a very warm welcome to our program Srimad Bhagavatam study. In this program, we are doing a detailed systematic study of Srimad Bhagavatam, starting from Canto 1, Chapter 1, verse number 1, and going all the way through the flow of Srimad Bhagavatam. The desire is to complete it till the end. So far, the journey has reached till Canto 2, Chapter number 9. We are in the end of chapter number 9. So you can see we have already discussed till verse number 36. Today we plan to discuss verse number 37 and complete the chapter by discussing till the end, that is verse number 46. And then we also plan to move to the 10th chapter and discuss the first 7 verses of the 10th chapter. So overall, this is our 82nd class. Previous classes are available on YouTube channel, which is named as Gita Online Study. Anyone can go there and refer to our previous classes. So this is the slide which is telling you that what we will cover in the canto number 2, chapter number 9, verse number 37 till 46. And we will start with the Mangalacharan prayers. So we'll request Rakesh ji to recite the Mangalacharan.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjanashalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapadakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam स्वादैत्वं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी श्रीराधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्योत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नष्टकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः. Thank you.
Very nice, excellent. So now we will discuss the summary of the previous class. In the previous class, we had discussed the 4th verse of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, and somehow there was some it was not possible to assign the service. Rakesh ji was a little bit busy, so it was not possible for him to assign the services. So that is why I am doing the recap for the class today. But from the next class onwards, he has already sent a name. We will share that in the end. But the 4th verse of Chatushloki Bhagavatam is about the Tad Angam. Tad Angam means the limbs of sadhan bhakti. So that is what the 4th verse is. The 4th verse is Etavad eva jigyasyam tatva jigyasun atmanah अन्वय व्यतिरेकाभ्याम यत्स्यात् सर्वत्र सर्वदा. So there are several key words in this verse which we need to remember. Jigyasyam. Jigyasyam means curiosity. Curiosity means the person who is curious will actually search for the answer. So there is a search involved. Etavad eva means till this point. Till this point means what? Till the prema bhakti, or till the uh, love for the Lord, or till the understanding that we understand that the Lord is actually the master of the, or the source of the spiritual world as well as the material world, all that. So till that point we understand this, we need to continuously jigyasyam. We need to continuously be curious, to be search for that Lord, for that prema. And then how we need to do it? We need to do it tattva jigyasun atmana. We need to do it, that jigyasa, in the guidance of some senior people who are already learned about this process. And then we can do it anvaya vyatirekabhyam. We can do it directly, we can do it indirectly. The scriptures also direct about this process of devotional service. Directly there is a indication, and indirectly also there is an indication. And then yat syat sarvatra sarvada, in all circumstances, at all times, at all places. So we discussed primarily, our methodology to understand this verse was mainly to simply understand the purport that was given by Prabhupada. Prabhupada had done a very long purport, had given a very long purport, almost 14-15 pages. So the way we studied this verse was, studied the different elements given in this verse by studying the purport of Prabhupada. And briefly, I have summarized all these points in only one slide. So the first point that Prabhupada mentioned in his purport is that ultimate goal of all inquiries is mainly to come to the point of Bhakti Yoga. So people are very much interested in doing all kind of inquiries. They are inquiring about fruits of their labor. They are inquiring about moksha. They are inquiring about many other things. But ultimately, all these inquiries should lead to the point of Bhakti Yoga, in all places, at all times, in all circumstances. That's how Prabhupada starts the purport. Then it is mentioned by Prabhupada that this has to be done through disciplic succession. It cannot be understood otherwise. It is a mysterious process. It is not possible to understand this process by our own tiny intelligence. Not possible. It is given by the Lord in disciplic succession to Brahma. Brahma gave it to Narada. Narada gave it to Vyasa. Vyasa gave it to Shukdev, and so on. Like it has gone like that. And only through disciplic succession one can understand it. There is no other way. You can explore scriptures, and scriptures also tell about this process, uh, but you still need a guru, because scriptures you cannot understand on your own. All the things you cannot understand on your own. Certainly you will find somewhere, some point, while reading scriptures, where you will be doubtful. You will need help of some teacher. Then uh, anvaya vyatirekabhyam, directly and indirectly. Directly means there is a direct explanation of bhakti, like in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, you will find many verses where a direct mention is there, but there is indirect approach also. Indirect approach is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and then come to Bhakti Yoga. So Karma Yoga actually is nothing but Varnashram. Varnashram means the society is divided into Varnas and Ashram. No, society is divided into Varna, and then spiritual order is mainly the Ashram part. So if a particular person is in particular varna and a particular ashrama, there is a set of defined activities for that person. But doing those activities is mainly, ultimately, purifies the person. It actually makes the person conscious of God, and like that, it elevates the living entity uh, ignorant from an ignorant being to somebody who is at a purified level, at a certain purified level. But that purification ultimately should lead to serving the Lord. So we quoted some verses from Bhagavatam which actually mentions this part. And then I also mentioned that Varnashram actually means four goals: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. In the modern day society, we only find Artha and Kama. There is no Moksha and there is no Dharma. But traditionally, the Varnashram means one need to fulfill their materialistic desires, which is Kama, has to be done by earning some artha, which is money. The artha need to be earned under the boundaries of dharma, which is religious earning. And then ultimately, after doing all that, the person need to strive for moksha, which is liberation. So that is the main goal of varnashrama. But ultimately, this is also not the final verdict of the Vedic literature. The final verdict of Vedic literature is love of Godhead, love of Lord Shri Krishna, which is the fifth Purushartha, which is Preeti. The ultimate goal of life is to attain love for Lord Krishna. So that was mainly the indirect and direct, indirect and direct. Then in all circumstances, sarvatra sarvada, and all times, all places, all circumstances, everyone takes should to bhakti in all circumstances. Sincerity is the only qualification. Now, various quotations were given by Prabhupada. We will not discuss that. Like if you are born uh, as a brahmana or a vaishya or a shudra or kshatriya or any other designation you might have, still you need to perform bhakti. Only qualification needed is sincerity. Then there is no obstacle in performing bhakti. It is easy to perform. Even if you are not very rich, you can perform bhakti. You can perform bhakti. If you are don't have any paraphernalia, still you can perform bhakti in your mind. So no obstacle in performing bhakti. Sarvatra. Then any stage of life you can perform bhakti: childhood, youthhood, old age. So several examples were given. Child example Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj. Youth example was given Chitraketu Maharaj. And then old age Jamil example was given. All places sarvatra, you can, if you, even if you are in hell or you are in heaven, you can perform bhakti. There is no limitation of performing bhakti. Then uh, more quotations were given by Prabhupada, which tells that Shastra indirectly indicates that everyone should take to Bhakti Yoga. So there were several instances I quoted in the purport by Prabhupada. And then ultimately, final conclusion is always hear and chant Lord's glories. No need for any other process. So even if you don't perform Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, there is no need. Actually, you are qualified to perform Bhakti Yoga. You can perform it anywhere, in any circumstances. So Bhakti uh, is the process which anyone can take. If you take to other processes, then there are chances that you may get lost, because other processes the goal is not very clear. Bhakti, the goal is clear from day one. You are doing bhakti for Lord Krishna, which is the ultimate goal. In other processes you might get distracted. In one process like Jnana Yoga, you impersonal liberation is the goal, and then you may get distracted in between also. So like that. So impersonalists cannot access the process or the goal, only possible via disciplic succession. That is the only way. Why impersonalists cannot do? Because they are trying to do it in a way which is not conducive to bhakti. They are trying to use their intelligence, or they are trying to control their mind, their senses. It is their own endeavor. But bhakti is mainly where we try to develop love for the Lord by doing various activities of bhakti, tad angam. And that is what it is being described here. And that when we do those activities, it attracts Lord's mercy. And when the Lord's mercy comes in the form of love of God in our heart, then actually that is the point where we get bhakti. So it is not only one way or an individual effort, it is a mercy given by the Lord, looking at the sincerity of the practitioner. So like that, we are already covered the recap of the previous class. Now we have covered till 36th verse. Today we are going to discuss the verses subsequent to the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, which is verse number 37 onwards. So now he will conclude the discussion. The Chatushloki Bhagavatam has been spoken by the Lord. He will conclude the discussion and will leave. He will leave. So this was a conversation between Brahmaji and Lord. uh, and now Lord has spoken the Bhagavatam. He will conclude and leave. After that, Chatushloki will be, there is a discussion how it is discussed in the disciplic succession, how Chatushloki will further be expanded by the subsequent speakers, like Narad Muni will further expand it, like Vyasdev will further expand it, and then Shukdev Goswami will further expand it. So it will be done in the parampara. So that parampara will be reflected in the verses from 40 to 46. So we will directly go to those verses. But now let me first of all take you to the slide. Can you see the slide? Rakesh Prabhu, can you
Yes,
see the slide?
Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So let us first of all just now briefly recap the Chatushloki. Please tell me about your material and spiritual form. Lord says, uh, my spiritual form existed before creation, remains even after destruction, and this universe is my material form. So practically what Lord is saying is everything is me. Everything is me. The spiritual world actually is my form. Material world which is getting created and destroyed every now and then actually is my form. And after material world is destroyed, whatever is left behind, which is the spiritual world, is actually my form. So practically what the Lord is saying is everything is me only, either spiritual or material, it is me only. Then how are the different energies of the Lord working? The Lord answers uh, that if you see everything in connection with me, or if you don't see everything in connection with me, actually it is Maya. Actually, it is Maya. So uh, that is the, and if you don't see, if you see the connection, that is Yoga Maya. If you see the connection, it is Maya. Uh, if you don't see the connection, it is Maya. And if you see the connection, it is actually my spiritual energy only. It is me only. So that is how the different energies of the Lord are working. Then how the Lord carries out his pastime means how does he play with his energy? He's saying that he is in everything. How does it play? He is in inside the creation, he is outside the creation. Like that, he is inside the creation, he is outside the creation, and that's where he says that he is inside the devotees and he is outside the devotees. So where he says he is inside the devotees, it is actually a very mysterious way of saying that he is inside in the heart of the devotees, mainly because of the love of the devotees. So that is where we discussed about the prema bhakti or the prayojan tattva. Then please give guidance to carry out your service without pride and bondage, and that is where he talks about the sadhan bhakti. So if you want to remain without any pride and bondage, continuously perform sadhan bhakti, and then it will make sure that you are without pride and bondage. Like that, we have 4 questions and 4 answers of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. I hope that is makes it very clear. So the first 2 verses is talking about Sambandha Jnana. In Sambandha also, the first one is about Jnanam, and the second is about the Vijnanam. Vijnanam means the realized knowledge. The third is about the Prayojan. Prayojan means the goal, which is Prema Bhakti. And the uh, fourth is about the Tad Angam. Tad Angam means the Abhideya, the process of how to achieve that Prema, like that. So I hope these 4 Chatushloki Bhagavatam are absolutely very, very clear to all the devotees. Now we go where? We go to the 37th verse. So 37th verse is here, and let me invite one devotee today for reading and discussion. So Rakesh ji, would you like to be the buddy in the class today for reading and
Yes,
discussion?
Prabhuji.
Okay. So in the class, maybe I will request you to read the text, and maybe I might pose you some questions just for discussion sake, in order to make the discussion a little bit lively. Not to put you in spot, put you in a difficult situation, but just to increase the uh, appeal of the class. So please read this 37th verse, Prabhu.
O Brahma, just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in partial nor in the final devastation.
Hmm. So as we discussed, the fourth question by Brahmaji was, please guide me so that I can do my service without any pride. And we mentioned to you that it is already kind of explained in the fourth verse of Chatushloki Bhagavatam. But here, Lord is confirming that if you understand these 4 important verses and act accordingly, I will guarantee you that you will not be disturbed by pride. You will not be disturbed by pride. And here in this verse, Brahmaji, Lord, is actually talking about just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind. Fixed concentration of mind. So he's using this word fixed concentration of mind. So fixed concentration of mind actually means what? So Prabhupada explained this part in the purport of this verse. He's saying that in Chatushloki Bhagavatam, Lord has used this word aham thrice. And despite the fact that Lord has used this word thrice, aham, still there are some commentators of Bhagavatam which screw out some impersonalistic meaning out of it. So people who are fond of their own philosophies, they try to uh, impose certain meanings on the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, which are very, very clear. So despite using the word aham thrice, impersonalists draw out impersonal meaning from Chatushloki text. So this is what is kind of expanding on the word fixed concentration. Fixed concentration. And then how one can understand really these verses of Bhagavatam only by reading them, only by understanding them in parampara system, in bona fide spiritual master parampara system. Only then we can understand the proper meaning of these verses. Otherwise, there might be some people who are very scholarly in Sanskrit. There might be people who are maybe little more advanced in some other kind of knowledge, but that does not mean that they are also knowledgeable about the spiritual conclusions, spiritual texts. Yeah? So we should always hear these things in parampara. Then one thing interesting Srila Prabhupada mentions in these verses, he's saying that like we have Chatushloki Gita, similarly we have Chatushloki Bhagavatam. But not only that, Prabhupada goes a little step ahead. He says that like Chatushloki Gita has been spoken by Lord Sri Krishna, Chatushloki Bhagavatam actually also has been spoken by Lord Sri Krishna. Now, this is something which is a little uh, we need to understand. Although all the time we have discussed these Chatushloki Bhagavatam as if Lord Vishnu, who is lying on the Garbhutaka ocean on Ananta Shesha, served by Lakshmi ji and followed by his many, many associates, eternal associates in the spiritual world, it appears that Chatushloki Bhagavatam was probably spoken by Lord Vishnu or Lord Narayana. But here, Prabhupada ji gives one reference from Gopal Tapani Upanishad, where he says that actually it was spoken by Lord Krishna only. So Lord Krishna appeared before Lord Brahma in the form of a cowherd boy and then spoke these verses of Chatushloki Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada cites Brahma Samhita. He cites Brahma Samhita, one verse from Brahma Samhita, saying that in Brahma Samhita it is mentioned that Lord Krishna appeared before him as a cowherd boy, like that. And then he also quotes Jiva Goswami, who mentions this point in Krishna Sandarbha. So, Rakesh ji, do you know about these books called Sandarbhas? Do you know about these books?
No, Prabhuji.
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about these books and why these books are very, very important for us who are studying Chaitanya Vaishnavism or who are Gaudiya Vaishnavas by practice or becoming Gaudiya Vaishnavas by practice, like that maybe I can say. So, Sandarbhas, actually, we are follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not write any books by himself. He gave these instructions to the Goswamis, Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami. Direct instructions were given to these two people. And then later on, these two Goswamis were joined by Jeev Goswami, Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatt Goswami. They were joined by the other Goswamis. And what has happened is that the Jeev Goswami actually has written these books called Sandarbhas. Sandarbhas actually are those books where the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, the each and every detail of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, how it has appeared, how it has come into existence, has been delineated, has been explained black and white, line by line, very clearly by Srila Jeev Goswami. And these are 6 books in total. These 6 books are there: Tattva Sandarbha, and then Bhagavat Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, and then Preeti Sandarbha, and I think one more Sandarbha is there, which the name I am missing. So there are 6 Sandarbhas like that. So in each of these Sandarbhas, he has explained the evidences why he is saying so. So a very flawless work Jeev Goswami has done, and if Krishna willing, maybe one day we will try to read these and study these books also. Not easy to understand, so we need to first of all understand ourselves from some teacher, some references, and then maybe we may be able to explain it to others also. But the point is, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is quoting Jeev Goswami, that Jeev Goswami has also mentioned this point in Krishna Sandarbha. So, and what is the point? That Lord Krishna actually himself spoke these verses, the Chatushloki Bhagavatam verses, to Lord Brahma. So that is the some important points from the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, now we go to the next one, which is the verse number 38. Please read, Prabhu.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, after being seen in his transcendental form, Rupa Mat Mano, instructing Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, Agyan Jananam, Jnanam, disappeared.
What I suggest, Rakeshji, when the Sanskrit comes, you may kind of leave the Sanskrit so that the flow of your reading does not stop. So why I have mentioned these verses, mainly because to emphasize some point. So one way for teaching could be that I could have listed the whole verse, and then from the Sanskrit of the verse, I would have explained the point. But sometimes I feel that it takes a little lot of time. I can do the same, I can achieve the same objective by simply highlighting the Sanskrit word in the translation itself. So maybe once again you can read without reading the Sanskrit. Yeah.
Dev Goswami said to Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, after being seen in his transcendental form, instructing Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, disappeared.
Okay. Now the verse only tells about, now so far the discussion was happening between whom, Rakesh ji? Who were the 2 people involved in Chatushloki Bhagavatam and so on? Who were the 2 people involved in the discussion?
Shukdev Goswami.
No, in Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Chatushloki Bhagavatam is spoken by whom?
Brahmaji.
Krishna and Brahma.
Krishna was speaking and Brahmaji was listening.
Brahmaji
Correct?
was
Correct. And how all that conversation started into discussion? How all that conversation started initially? Why? How it is started all?
He asked, what are your forms?
No. Early, Shukdev Goswami was asked certain questions by Parikshit Maharaj. And in order to answer the questions of Parikshit Maharaj, Shukdev Goswami started the discussion by citing this conversation between Brahmaji and Lord. Do you remember this? Ragesh, do you remember that? Cannot hear you. Vrindavaneshwari Mataji, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you, Prabhuji, but
Okay.
can you kindly repeat the question?
The question is, how all this conversation between Brahmaji and Lord came into discussion in Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the point? Why this discussion was discussed in Bhagavatam?
Why? Because I'm not sure, but I think Brahmaji put up certain questions to the Lord, and to explain those questions, Krishna started to speak. The same questions were repeated by Parikshit Maharaj, and Shukadev Goswami answered those questions. This
Yeah,
was the emphasis.
actually the discussion was going on between Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So if you
Yeah.
go in
So,
chapter 8, Shukdev
yeah.
Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj were discussing. They were discussing earlier also, but once
Yes.
that discussion was that question was about the creation,
Yes.
and in order to explain creation, the conversation between Brahma and Narad
Yes.
was mentioned, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then once that conversation between Narad and Brahma got over about the creation, then
Yes.
once again the uh, conversation came back to Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj.
Yes.
Then Parikshit Maharaj asked a long list of questions,
Yes.
right? And in order to answer those questions, Shukdev Goswami once again started answering Parikshit Maharaj questions. And there
Yeah.
was one particular question about the Lord form, spiritual, material, and all that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then Shukdev Goswami started answering those questions by Parikshit Maharaj by citing the conversation between Brahmaji and
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. So it was kind of validation
Yeah, yeah.
by
Wait a,
Sukadev Goswami when
wait,
he was.
yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So the point is the conversation of Brahmaji and the Lord of Chatushloki Bhagavatam, actually it is an answer to the question asked by Parikshit Maharaj, and Shukdev Goswami is using this conversation to answer that question by Parikshit Maharaj. Okay, is that
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah. Yes.
Now,
Definitely.
the Chatushloki Bhagavatam discussion happens between Lord and Brahma, and after this conversation is over, the Lord is now leaving. Now the conversation is again going back to Shukdev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Okay,
Yes.
so you see
Yes.
this slide. In this slide, the picture is between Brahmaji and Lord Krishna,
Yeah.
and now in this slide, the picture changes.
Yes.
The picture is now between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukdev Goswami, and the verse itself says, Shukdev Goswami said to Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, after being seen in his transcendental form, uh, instructing Brahmaji, the leader of living entities, disappeared. So the conversation happened. Lord spoke Chatushloki Bhagavatam. All answers were given, and then the Lord disappeared. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So the
Very.
main message of this verse is that after speaking Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the Lord left. The Lord disappeared. But there are certain Sanskrit words used in the Sanskrit shloka which are important to highlight. After being seen in his transcendental form, Roop Atmano, Roop Rupam Atmano. So this is the Sanskrit word used in the verse number 38. Rupam Atmano means after being seen in his transcendental form. Rupam, the word Rupam has been used. Rupam Atmano. So the point here is Srila Prabhupada never leaves any opportunity to explain that the absolute truth is with a form. Absolute
Yeah.
truth is with a form. So if
Yeah.
you ask impersonalists, if you ask the
Mm.
followers of Gyan Marga,
Mm.
they will say that the absolute truth is impersonal.
Yeah.
Absolute truth is impersonal. Here, if you read the Sanskrit, it is very clear that the Sanskrit is saying Rupam Atmano. Here, Rupam actually means the transcendental Roop, the transcendental form. And then again, there is another word, the Sanskrit word used for Lord Brahma is, uh, or I would say, not for Lord Brahma, the leader of the living entities disappeared. Ajanaha Jananam. Ajanaha Jananam. Ajanaha Jananam means he is one living entity, he's one person who is the leader of the Jananam, who is the leader of the all the living entities. So Ajana Jananam means leader of the living entities. Actually, it is referring to the Supreme Lord himself. And then the whole point is uh, there is no room for impersonal theory. There is no room for impersonal theory. So Bhagavatam, if you read it properly, at every step, there are evidences, there are mention of the such Sanskrit verses which clearly brings out the matter or brings out the point that actually the supreme reality or the absolute truth is actually with a form. It's a person, not impersonal Brahma Jyoti or anything like that. Okay.
Prabhuji, how does this second word uh, kind of support that this is a personal, the
Yeah.
word which is supporting the
Okay.
personal
So
thing?
Ajanaha Jananam. It is very similar to Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas
Yeah.
Chetananam,
Yeah.
Eko Bahunam Yo Vidhati Kamam.
Mm.
Eko Bahunam Yo Vidhati Kamam. So if you read the purport for verse number 38, uh, it is uh, it is something very similar, which reflects the same point. Nityo Nityanam. Nityo Nityanam means among all the eternal beings, there is one eternal being which is special.
Mm.
Chetana Chetananam means among all sentient beings or conscious beings, there is one conscious being which is special. And that the second
Mm.
line confirms Eko Bahunam Yo Vidhati Kaman. Eko
Mm.
Bahunam. Eko. Only one is actually managing the desires of all the other
Mm.
living entities. So similarly, Ajanaha Jananam. Ajanaha Jananam. Ajanaha
Okay.
Jananam is mentioned here.
Okay.
38. Hmm. Ajanaha. Ajanaha means Parameshwar and Jananam means the living entities. So the Lord of all the living entities. That is what
Right.
leader of living entities actually Prabhupada translates it like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Rakeshji, please read the 39th. Are you there with us?
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
Yeah.
On the disappearance of Lord Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities as it was previously.
Hmm. On the disappearance of Lord Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for senses of devotees. Uh, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe full with living entities as it was previously. So, from the content point of view, the message given is the Lord, after speaking Chatushloki Bhagavatam, left the scene, and then Brahmaji started engaging himself in the creation, the service. So the Lord has already created the ingredients. Brahmaji now starts to do the creation with folded hands, like that it is mentioned. But there is one word again in this Sanskrit verse, which Srila Prabhupada expands and give the expansion in the purport, and that is Indriya Arthaya. Indriya Arthaya. So the way it is spoken here is Antar Hitendriya Arthaya Haraye Vihitanjalihi. Antar Hitendriya Arthaya. Antar actually means, Antarhit means Antardhyan. Antardhyan means disappeared. Indriya Arthaya Haraye. So Haraye actually refers to Lord Hari, and Indriya Arthaya actually refers to the goal or the object of all the Indriyas, object of all the senses. So Hari actually has been described as the object of all the senses. So that is the word which is being highlighted by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. So Indriya Arthaya means goal of all the senses. So living entity want to put their senses typically for sense gratification, but they should be meant for serving the Supreme Lord. So Indriya Arthaya Haraye. Indriya Arthaya Haraye actually means the goal or the objective of Indriyas is actually to serve the Supreme Lord Hari. And we have also seen in this particular canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that when the creation is happening, all the Indriyas, all the sense objects, all the senses are actually coming from where? From the Virat Purusha only, isn't it? So the point is that the Supreme Lord is the owner of all these senses. Supreme Lord is the Rishikesha, Rishikena, Rishikesha. That is the verse that we typically read in this regard. So Indriya Arthaya means the goal of senses. And uh, the purpose of creation is to provide chance to living entities to awaken their God consciousness. So these are the 2 points that Prabhupada mentioned in the purport. One is that the goal of all the senses is the Supreme Lord, which has been described here in this verse as Indriya Arthaya Haraye. And the second point is why do Lord Brahma is doing all this creation? Lord Brahma is doing this creation mainly for those living entities who are not yet able to perfect their lives. They are once again given this opportunity to come into this creation and engage their senses in the service of Lord Hari, and once again perfect their life and go back to Godhead, like that. So he has uh, actually uh, connected two themes. One is Indriya Arthaya. Indriya Arthaya means the living entities need to engage their senses in the service of the Lord. And in order to do that, you need a creation, and that creation will be done by Lord Brahma. That is the main point. I hope that is clear. Let us go to the next one. Okay, now we have completed the section 31 to 39. This section is completed. We are now moving to the next section. So before moving to the next section, we need to note certain things. Rakesh ji, please read.
After this, the conversation between Narad and Brahma took place. This section 2.9.40 to 44 refers to the situation prior to this conversation.
Sorry, there is a little spelling mistake here. It is took place. Took place. So what it is telling is, so as I was mentioning short while ago, in chapter number 5 of second canto, there was conversation between Narad and Brahma. Do you remember that, Rakesh ji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So that conversation was about the process of creation. Narad ji was curious about who is creating all this, and I was asking question to Brahma ji. So after this means the conversation between Lord Brahma and Lord Krishna, where Chatushloki Bhagavatam has been spoken. After this, the conversation between Narad and Brahma took place. So the point is, the conversation between Brahma and Narad was spoken or was discussed in chapter number 5. But the conversation of Brahma ji and Lord Krishna of Chatushloki Bhagavatam is happening in chapter number 9. But we need to understand that the conversation between Brahma and Lord Krishna happened before the conversation between Brahma and Narada. So this section which you are going to study now between 40 and 44 verses refer to the situation prior to this conversation. This conversation between Narad and Brahma. So Narad and Brahma had this conversation in chapter number 5. Now whatever being described here in 40 to 44 verses is the situation before that conversation. So is that point clear, Rakesh ji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, we go to the 40th verse now. So please read this verse.
Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities.
Now, here the some background about what was the situation of Lord Brahma. So once upon a time, the forefather of all the living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma, situated himself in act of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. So before he uh, 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 started to do the creation, the situation of Lord Brahma is being discussed here. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport is talking about life full of sense control. Because Lord Brahma, before doing all this creation, etc., he was doing this tapa, he's doing this regulative principles, he was controlling his senses and all that. So Prabhupada took this opportunity to emphasize on the uh, importance of sense control. And then after he emphasized the importance of sense control in spiritual life, he says that the best way of doing sense control is actually bhakti, only devotional service. So that is the main point that was discussed by Prabhupada in this. Let us move further. 41.
Narad, the most dear of the inheritor sons of Brahma, always ready to serve his father, strictly follows the instructions of his father by his mannerly behavior, meekness, and sense control.
Now, previous verse, Narad about Brahmaji was described, how he was doing sense control. And now in the next verse, it is mainly about Narad Muni. Narad is described as Priya, Priyatamo. Priyatamo means very dear, of the inherited sons of Brahma. So there are many, many sons of Lord Brahma, and Narad actually is the most dear of that sons of Brahma. And there are certain qualities of Narad being mentioned here. Always ready to serve his father. Shushrumanaha. Strictly follows all the instructions of his father. Anuvrataha. By his mannerly behavior, meekness, and sense control. So these qualities are important. You will understand that why these qualities are important later in the verses, because Brahmaji will speak Srimad Bhagavatam to Narada. Although he had many, many sons, Brahmaji did not speak Bhagavatam to all of his sons. He chose specifically Narada. And why he chose Narada? Mainly because of certain qualities of Narada. He was most dear. Why he was dear? Because he was always ready to serve his father. Shushrumanaha. And following the instructions very strictly. Anuvrataha. He was very mannered. He was having a very good behavior. And he was very meek. He was not kind of revolting and all that, and was full of sense control. So these are the qualifications of Narada which make him qualified for receiving Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, read number 42, Prabhu.
Narad very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees, O king.
So more qualifications are given of Narada, which made him qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So Narada was very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu. So he pleased his father. And how can somebody who is a disciple can please the guru? How can one please his one guru? Now, Rakeshji, do you know the formula? How can one please his guru? Sorry?
To follow his instructions.
Follow his instruction, and you can also say by doing some seva.
Serve him by service.
By serving. Tad vidhi parinipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So humbly inquire from the guru and faithfully serve the guru. So when you do that, the guru becomes pleased. So he's saying that very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu. So he was very inquisitive also. The master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees. Like that. So in this purport of verse number 42, there are some details given by Narad about Narad Muni. So Prabhupada mentions that Brahmaji had many sons. Say, for example, Daksha, Sanak Adi, the four Kumaras, and the Narad Muni. So these are some of the most illustrious sons of Lord Brahma. And Brahmaji gave each of these sons different branches of the Vedas. So his son Daksha got the Karma Kanda. His other sons like Sanak, Sanatan, etc. got Jnana Kanda. And Narad Muni actually received Upasana Kanda. So Bhakti is actually included in the Upasana Kanda section. So Narada is very dear son to Brahma mainly because of his qualities, and we discussed these qualities. He was very eager to serve. He was very much eager to listen about Lord Vishnu. He was very faithful to his father. He pleased his father by his service, and so on. So Narada was very dear because of his qualities, as mentioned here. And Narada was also a very popular guru of many great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, Vyasdev, like that. So Narada is very dear mainly because he is always keen to engage others in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. That is makes Narada very dear to everyone, specifically to his father, which is Lord Brahma. So that is the 42nd verse. We go to the 43rd. Yeah, Prabhu, please read.
The great sage Narad also inquired in detail from his father, Brahma, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied.
So the great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father, Brahma. So as I was mentioning to you, this is conversation is explaining, or these details are explaining the situation before Narad Brahma Samvad in chapter 5 took place. So the great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great grandfather, Prapitamaha. So sometimes we understand great grandfather like we understand great grandfather in our times. Our great grandfather has already departed from this world. But when it is talked about Brahmaji as Prapitamaha, great grandfather, it does not mean that Brahmaji is also not existing. He is still living as Brahma only, because his life is very, very long. So that is what is mentioned here. So he inquired in detail from his father Brahma, the great grandfather of all universe, after seeing him well situated. So the dynamics of modern education and the dynamics of spiritual education is very different. As you can see from these verses, the dynamic of modern education is something like it is based on payment system. We give some money to the teacher, and the teacher actually gives us some information, some skills, uh, some education, but that is not spiritual education. That is mainly for our material well-being and so on, and that is on a payment basis and on a maybe a contract basis that is done. But spiritual education is not payment basis. There is no need for money. Even if you don't pay anything to the guru, but you please the guru by your service, by your demeanor, by your inquisitiveness about learning spiritual subject matter, you can get spiritual education free of cost. Yeah. But the payment of spiritual education is a different currency. That currency is seva. That currency is your inquisitiveness. That currency is your faithfulness towards the message of the Lord, devotion of the Lord, and all that. So that is what mainly Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, that spiritual education is altogether a different ball game. When the spiritual master is pleased, then you receive that spiritual education. And the spiritual master also should be, as explained here, Brahma was full of sense control. So spiritual master should also be full of sense control. Vacho vegam, manasa krodho vegam, jivva vegam, udaro pastho vegam. Like in Nectar of Instruction, the very first verse we have read. So if a person is fully controlled of his mind, speech, anger, tongue, belly, genitals, he is actually qualified to make disciples all over the world like that. So these are some of the points in the purport. We can understand it. Now go to the 44th verse. Yes, Prabhu, please read.
Thereupon the supplementary Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the Lord and which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father to his son Narad.
Thereupon means because of all this, Brahmaji was a qualified guru and Narad was a qualified disciple. Thereupon, that is why the supplementary Vedic literature means it is part of the Vedas. Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the Lord, which contains 10 characteristics. So the Lord described only 4 verses, but these 4 verses have 10 characteristics, which we will study short while in the beginning of the 10th chapter of the second canto, which we are going to discuss in short while. Was told with satisfaction by Father Brahma to his son Narada. So the point is that the 4 verses that were described by the Supreme Lord to Lord Brahma, don't think that these are the only 4 important verses and others are not important. The 4 verses mention that the Lord is the source of everything, either spiritual or material. And Srimad Bhagavatam actually starts with this same Janmadyasyataha, same message, from whom everything comes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadyato Anvayaditarataschartheshva Abhigya Swarat. So from whom that whom everything comes is Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva. So these are further expanded by Narada and Vyasadeva and so on. So more example can be given of similar thing is that like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave some important teachings to Rup Goswami, Sanatan Goswami. Then Sanatan Goswami, Rup Goswami wrote books and books on those teachings, and those books and books were further expanded by Jeev Goswami and other Goswamis like that. So similarly, Lord gave only 4 seed verses. These seed verses were given by little further expansion by Brahmaji to Narada, and Narada further expanded it. Then Vyasadeva further expanded it. Then Sukdev Goswami further expanded it. So, like that, Bhagavatam is not something which is only limited to these 4 verses. Actually, the Bhagavatam that we have is 18,000 verses. And in 18,000 verses, it is an expansion of all these 4 Chatushloki Bhagavatam verses. And these verses actually have 10 subject matter, which we are going to discuss in short while. So, uh, in the end, in the purport, Prabhupada gives a very beautiful analogy. Like the Lord can be the minutest of the minutest, smallest of the smallest, and the Lord at the same time can be the greater than the greatest. Similarly, Bhagavatam can be smaller than the smallest and greater than the greatest. Smaller than the smallest means only 4 verses you can read Bhagavatam, and greater than the greatest means even in 18,000 verses you can continue to further expand and expand and expand and maybe have unlimited verses on Srimad Bhagavatam, like that. So that is how, with a beautiful analogy, Srila Prabhupada actually explained this verse. Now we go to the 45th verse. Again the picture changes.
In succession, O king, the great sage Narad instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Lord, the absolute truth, on the bank of the river Saraswati.
Okay, so now the discussion was Brahmaji gave Srimad Bhagavatam to Narada. Brahma was a qualified guru, Narad was a qualified disciple. Now this conversation is happening between Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So Shukdev Goswami is saying that after that, Narad Muni gave this Bhagavatam to Vyasadev. Now it is referring to which chapter? Do you remember, Rakesh ji? We have discussed this when Narad Muni came to the ashram of Vyasadev. Vyasadev was very dejected, was not very in a good mood, and so on. Then the Bhagavatam was given by Narad Muni to Vyasadev, and then that discussion happened. That happened in chapter number 5, 6, and 7. So you remember that, Rakesh ji?
Yes, Prabhuji, that story is
Still you remember, right? Maybe not
yes,
very
yes.
not very sharply, but still you have some recollection of that katha, correct? And do you also remember that in chapter 7, after Narad Muni gave his instruction that you now need to glorify the Supreme Lord Krishna and do nothing else? We have discussed so many other things in Srimad Bhagavatam, in your other Vedic literature, but have not purely described the glories of the Supreme Lord and his activities. So you do it now. And then Narad Muni leaves the ashrama. And then what happens to Vyasadev? What does Vyasadev do? Do you remember it? What does Vyasadev do after his guru Narad Muni leaves, or
He
anyone in the class?
compiles Bhagavatam.
Mhm.
He compiles Srimad Bhagavatam.
But before compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, what did he do?
He listened to his guru's instructions and he
What did he
listened.
do? After Narad Muni left, now no, there is no Narad Muni to give instruction. He is alone. What exactly he did?
Tapa?
Yeah, you are little close. Not tapa exactly. Something else. He meditated. Dhyayate. He meditated. So you need to go back and read chapter 7, starting
I
verses.
will. I
Starting verses. It is very important. It is very important because basis on this particular verses, our whole parampara of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is kept. If you read Tattva Sandarbha, as I was mentioning to you, there are 6 Sandarbhas. So the very first Sandarbha is Tattva Sandarbha. Tattva Sandarbha means whatever Jiva Goswami is writing in these books, the methodology he is using to explain the basic tenets, basic points of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So the methodology is mentioned in the Tattva Sandarbha. And one of the strongest argument that Jiva Goswami uses in the Tattva Sandarbha is that the author of Vedas is who? Vrindavaneshwari Mataji, who is the author of the Vedas?
It is Vedas are apaurushya. They have come from the from Krishna through the mouth of Brahma.
Mataji, just now you mentioned Vyasdev compiled the Vedas,
Yes, he
and now
compiled the
you are
Vedas.
giving me all kind of fancy answers.
I thought you were asking in a different manner.
Who is the compiler of the Vedas?
Vyasdev.
Vyasdev is the compiler of the Vedas, right?
Yeah.
And when Vyasdev is compiler of the Vedas, and before he is writing Srimad Bhagavatam, he is sitting in a meditative pose, and in that meditation, what does he see? Do you remember?
Yes, he sees that the people of Kali Yuga are Manda, Sumedha, Manda,
Okay,
like
they
they
are
are
struggling, they are
unfortunate,
struggling, they are
they're
struggling.
unfortunate, they have lesser lifespan, and they have less memory.
Okay, what else?
So
What else he see in that meditation? Rakesh ji, do you remember?
the advent of Kali Yuga.
No, he sees few things, which is he sees the Lord himself. He sees his energy Maya, which was standing
Yes,
separately from
yes,
the Lord, away from the
yes,
Lord.
yes,
He sees
yes,
the struggling Jiva. The
yeah,
Maya is bewildering the Jiva. And he sees the solution also. He sees the solution, which is Bhakti Yoga. So he
yeah,
sees four things in that meditation.
okay.
So the author of the Vedas himself is sitting in meditation and seeing what? He's seeing the
See,
Supreme Lord. He's not seeing impersonal Brahma Jyoti. He's not
yeah,
seeing that. He's
mhm,
seeing these four things. So in Tattva Sandarbha, Jeev Goswami uses this verse mainly to tell that if you want to understand the heart of the Vedas or the conclusion of the Vedas, you need to first of all understand the heart of the author of the Vedas. Do you get my point? And in his heart, what is there? In his heart, when he sits in that meditation, he sees Lord Krishna, his energy Maya, the bewildering souls, the struggling Jiva with the Maya, and then the solution as Bhakti Yoga. So you go back and read those chapter number 7, the beginning verses. I think they are starting from 7th onwards. That is what Vyasdev sees. And then he compiles Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you
I
want to
think
really understand the purport or the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam, that the supreme reality is the absolute truth is personal, you need to simply understand the heart of the author of Srimad Bhagavatam to come to that conclusion. That is the main point.
if I remember correctly, you emphasized on this shloka, Yasya Vaishooyamanaya
Yeah, correct.
Krishne
Purusha.
Paramapurushe.
Krishna Parama Purusha.
Yes,
It is
now
not
I
saying Brahma
remember.
Jyoti Parama Purusha or Brahma
Yeah,
Jyoti is
now
the
I
Param
remember
Satya.
correctly. Yeah.
Correct? So that is the main point, Mataji here. Okay. Now we go to the next one, the final verse. Please read. Rakesh.
O king,
Hmm.
your questions as to how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation of the four verses already mentioned.
So Shukdev Goswami is now saying that, my dear king, you asked me a lot of questions, uh, including the question about how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of the Lord, Virat Purusha. I will answer that, and I will answer all those other questions in detail, uh, in as an explanation or as an expansion of the four verses that I already mentioned. So this is something now he concludes this discussion here in the ninth chapter, and now it's time to go to the 10th chapter. So 10th chapter we are going to study today the first 7 verses, and the title of this chapter is very interesting. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So we will discuss why this title has been kept. There is a slide on that also. But before we go there, we discuss a little bit about the various themes in this 10th chapter. Bhagavatam's 10 subjects. So already in the previous chapter, there is mention of that Srimad Bhagavatam actually can be divided into 10 specific subjects, 10 different topics. Then in from 10 to 35, the creation of Virat Roop, answer to Parikshit Maharaj question which is asked in the 8th chapter, the 11th verse. Then Visarga is explained. Visarga means the secondary creation. secondary creation. So far we have discussed only the primary creation. And then now the Visarga. Visarga means the secondary creation. Secondary creation is done by whom? Rakesh ji? Secondary creation is done by whom?
Brahma.
Brahma ji, right? So, and primary creation is done by whom?
Krishna.
Lord Krishna, correct. Or you can say Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is the expansion of Krishna. And then Shaunak Rishi inquires about Vidur Maitreya Samvad. So Vidur Maitreya Samvad will become the subject matter of the third canto. So there will be some discussion that will happen, because when Vidura, do you remember Vidura was kicked out by his nephew Duryodhan? In the first canto we discussed that. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So after Vidur was kicked out by Duryodhan from the home, Vidur went out, and ultimately he went to whom and met whom? Uddhava. He asked few questions from Uddhava. Uddhava said that, sir, you are very senior to me. I can't answer all these questions. You better go and ask Maitreya Rishi. You better go and ask Maitreya Rishi, because when Krishna was giving me these instructions, Maitreya Rishi was also there. He is going to explain it to you. So Shaunak Rishis asked that about that Vidur Maitreya Samvad in the end. Okay. So, but for today class, verse number 1 till verse number 7 we are going to discuss Bhagavatams, 10 subjects. So it is not Bharavatams, it is Bhagavatams. Bhagavatams, 10 subjects. Okay. So now we discuss a little bit about why the title of this chapter is mentioned as Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So Rakesh ji, please read the first bullet.
Brahma heard the Bhagavatam in 4 verses and then asked Narad to expand on them. Shukdev Goswami will now do the retelling of expanded Bhagavatam and in due course answer all the questions asked by Parikshit Maharaj
But
in
wait,
2.8.
Yeah, wait. So Brahmaji heard Bhagavatam in 4 verses, and then Brahmaji asked Narad Muni to please go and expand on them. So remember, in the end of 8th chapter, there was discussion between Brahma and Narada when he was concluding this topic of creation. I think maybe not in 8th chapter, but in the 7th chapter probably. He was saying that Narad, now you go and expand on them. You go and preach. You go and expand on them. So now Shukdev Goswami, whatever Narad Muni expanded on Bhagavatam, Shukdev Goswami will retell that expanded version of Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, and will use that expanded version of Bhagavatam to answer Parikshit Maharaj questions which he asked in 2.8. Is that point clear, Rakesh ji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Now please read the second bullet.
This chapter includes the 10 subjects of Bhagavatam.
So now 10 subjects of Bhagavatam are included in the 10th chapter of second canto. Therefore, it is entitled as Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So Parikshit Maharaj is asked a lot of questions. Shukdev Goswami will start to answer all those questions using that expanded version of Bhagavatam, which was told by Narad to other people like Vyasdev and so on. And then the same retelling will be done by Parikshit to Parikshit Maharaj by Shukdev Goswami now. Okay. So we read this first verse of the 10th chapter. Shri Shuka Uvacha
Shri Shuka Uvacha
Aktar Sargo Visargascha
Trasargo Visargascha
Sthanam Poshanamutayah
Sthanam Poshanam Utaya
Manvantara Eshanu Katha
Manvantare Eshanu Katha
Nirodho Muktirashrayah.
Nirodho Muktir Ashraya.
Now please read the
Shri
translation.
Shukdev Goswami said, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: the creation of the universe, subcreation, planetary systems, protection by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of Manus, the science of God, returning home, back to Godhead, liberation, and the Samam Bonam.
Samambonam. So there are 10 topics. So in English, they might appear a little complicated to understand, but if you read the Sanskrit, they are very easy to remember. Sarga, topic number 1. Sarga means what? Primary creation. Visarga is the secondary creation. So just now we discussed about primary creation and secondary creation. Primary creation is done by the Lord Mahavishnu. Secondary creation is done by Lord Brahma. So Sarga, Visarga. The third topic is Sthanam. Sthanam means place. So once that creation is done, then all the living entities are given their respected places. So like if we make a building, like we purchase a house, so one is a master bedroom, then there is a smaller bedroom, then there is a kitchen, then there is maybe some children room, or there may be some play area, balcony, etc. So like Sthanam. So in the big creation of things, there are many lokas, and the living entities are placed in different lokas based on their previous activities. So that is Sthanam. Poshanam. Poshanam means this creation actually is done for what? This creation is done mainly for the living entities, so that the living entities can once again engage in the devotional service of the Lord and come back to the Lord. That is why this creation is done. But while this creation, the living entities are trying it out, going back to Godhead, the Lord actually also facilitates their poshanam, their devotional service. The Lord supports. The Lord actually give them the instructions from inside, guide them, take them to different people where the living entity actually can elevate himself to the higher level. That is poshanam. That comes from the Lord himself. That is poshanam. So poshanam actually is mentioned here as protection by the Lord. And utayaha. Utayaha means the creative impetus. Utayaha means creative impetus. Creative impetus means the impressions. So when we are doing activities in this world, we are creating our future bodies. Say if we are doing a lot of devotional activities, we are actually trying to create a janma or a birth for ourselves, which will be more conducive for devotional activities. If we are doing a lot of fruitive activities, we are creating a life which is mainly conducive mainly for fruitive activities. Karma, like Varna Ashram, Kshatriya, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, how do these people get these kind of inclinations, proclivities to do these activities? By doing their karma right now. They get us their future janma, their future birth. So that is the creative impetus. That is what utayaha, utayaha. And manvantara. Manvantara means that our lives are actually being controlled by manus. So each of these creation that is being done, each of these yugas is controlled by whom? By a manu. And the reign of one manu and the second manu, that is actually called manvantara. So reign of one manu is called manvantara. Then when the second manu comes, that is second manvantara. Then the third manu comes, then that is a third manvantara, like that. So that is manvantara. So in each of these manvantara, these manu gives some scriptures like Manu Smriti for the mankind to live accordingly. So that is the change of manus, the manvantras. Then Eshanu Katha. Eshanu Katha means the science of God. So this science of God is explained with the help of various sages in terms of stories, in terms of kathas, or the science of God is also explained in terms of the katha of their devotees, the devotees of the Lord. So Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with such kathas, kathas of the Lord and kathas of his devotees of the Lord, by which we can understand the science of God. So that is Eshanu Katha. Then Nirodha. Nirodha actually means uh, science of God. Then Nirodha means returning home. Returning home, Nirodha means destruction, pralaya. So after every material creation, there is a pralaya where the living entities goes back into the body of Mahavishnu. And Muktir. So those who are able to go back home, back to Godhead, they get mukti, they get liberation, they get, so that is back to Godhead. Muktir. And then Ashraya. Ashraya is the Sammambonam. Ashraya actually is also only talking about Lord Krishna. So all these 9 topics are mainly for us to understand the final topic, which is Ashraya Tattva, the Sammambonam, the Ashraya. So Rakesh ji, please repeat with me. The first topic is Sarga,
Sarga,
Visarga,
Visarga,
then Sthanam,
Sthanam,
Poshanam,
Poshanam,
Utayah,
Udayah,
Manvantarah,
Manmantrah,
Ishanukatha,
Ishanukatha,
Nirodha,
Nirodha,
Mukti,
Mukti,
and Ashraya.
Ashraya.
Okay, so if you reflect upon these Sanskrit words, you probably will be in a better situation to understand uh, the 10 topics, the 10 subjects of Bhagavatam. Again, I have made this mistake here. It is actually Bhagavatam. Maybe I'll correct it later on. Okay, now we go to the second one. Please, so we will read this verse. दशमस्य विशुद्ध्यर्थम
Dashmasya Vishuddhyartham,
नवनामिह लक्षणम
Avanam Iha Lakshanam,
वर्णयन्ति महात्मानः
Varnayanti Mahatmanah,
श्रुतेनार्थेन चाञ्जसा.
Narthena Chanjaza.
Please read.
To isolate the transcendence of the summum bonum, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by the great sages.
Ha. So ultimately, what it is trying to say is that the 10th topic, the Ashraya, uh, uh, is the subject matter of, or is the goal of the other 9 topics. So other 9 topics that we have discussed, starting from Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, Utaya, Manavantra, Ishanu Katha, Nirodha, Mukti, these are the 9 topics. All these 9 topics are supposed to take us to the ultimate conclusion, which is the Ashraya, the Samam Bonam. To isolate the transcendence of the Samam Bonam, the symptoms of the rest are described. So the rest means the 9 other topics we understand, we try to learn, mainly to understand what? Lord Krishna, the Samam Bonam, the Ashraya Tattva. It is done by Vedic inference, it is done by direct explanation, it is done by some summary explanation given by some great sages. So different style, different variety of explanation, teaching style is used in Bhagavatam. But ultimately, we understand the 9 topics to understand the 10th topic, which is the Ashraya Tattva. Now, from verse number 3 to verse number 7, all these 10 topics have been briefly explained by Shukdev Goswami. So, first of all, it is Sarga. So, please read, Prabhu, the definition here.
The elementary creation of 16 items of matter.
Huh. So, elementary creation of the 16 items. So, the raw material is made by Mahavishnu. That is the elementary, that is the primary creation. What are these 16 items? 5 gross elements: earth, air, water, fire, ether, and then 5 sense objects, and then the 5 sense organs. So we will not delineate them. And the 16th one is the mind. So gross elements, 5 sense organs, 5 sense objects, and the mind. So there are 16 items. So that is that is primarily created as primary creation, Sarga. Then Visarga. Visarga is the secondary creation, interaction of the modes of material nature. Now, Lord Brahma, what does he do? He mixes these various, he gives the bodies to the living entities, and according to their modes of material nature, they interact. So, the interaction of the modes of material nature. So, Lord Brahma used these ingredients to do the secondary creation, and that's how it works. So, that is Visarga. Okay, now we go to the fourth one. Fourth one tells us about the 4 other topics of Bhagavatam: Sthanam, Poshanam, Manvantara, and Uti. So Sthanam means what? Sthithir Vaikuntha Vijayaha. Sthanam, as I mentioned to you, what does it mean? When the creation is done, then the living entities are located in each of these creation. Different planets, different bodies, different locations. They are created. They are located. That is means Sthanam. Here it is mentioned as the victory of the Lord of the Vaikuntha. geography of the universe. So that is the geography. What is where, like that. So the victory of the Lord. Why it is mentioned as the victory of the Lord? Because it is indicating the supreme glory of the Lord as he is the universal maintainer. That is why it is mentioned as Vaikuntha Vijaya. Then Poshanam. Poshanam is his causeless mercy. Poshanam tad anugraha. As I was mentioning to you before, Lord not only does the creation, Lord helps Brahmaji to place various living entities in different bodies, and the purpose is mainly so that the living entities come to a regulated path, accept devotional service, and come back to him. But in this process, the living entity needs help, and the Lord provides that help. Lord provides that protection, and that protection has been mentioned as his anugraha, his causeless mercy. And then the fifth one is manvantara. Manvantarani Shadharma. So as I was explaining to you, Manvantara means the reign of one Manu. So one day of Lord Brahma can be divided into 14 parts. So each part is the reign of one Manu. Each part of this of Lord Brahma, 1/14th of Lord Brahma is comprised of 71 yugas. 71 yugas. One yuga cycle is Satya Yuga, Dwapar, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. Like that 71 times when these yuga cycles repeat, for that duration of time, one Manu rules. And one day of Lord Brahma has 14 such manvantras. So one day of Brahma, 14 manvantras. One manvantara has 71 yugas, and one yuga has four small yugas like Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga, like that. So in each manvantara, the Manus come, rule the manvantara, and in this period they give one Manu Smriti, one scripture which is mainly meant for guiding the mankind. And who is the first Manu? Who is the first Manu? Do you remember the name? Swam Bhuva Manu is the first Manu. Now we are in the reign of the seventh Manu. The name of the seventh Manu is what? The name of the seventh Manu is Vaivasvat Manu. You remember in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4? Vivasvan Manave Praha. Vivasvan Manave Praha means the son of Vivasvan, who is Vaivasvat. So we are in the seventh Manvantara, and the Vaivasvat Manu is our Manu. In this Manvantara, Vaivasvat Manu is ruling us. So like that. And Uti Karma Vasanaha. Uti Karma Vasana. Karma Vasana means we have proclivity to do some karma. And when we do that karma, our future body is decided. Our future body is decided. So whatever actions we perform now, that is creating the impressions of the future body. If we are doing a lot of good work, pious work, we will get a more sattvic body. If we are doing a lot of tamasic work or rajasic work, we will get more of rajasic or tamasic body, like that. So uti is the desire for fruitive work. So you will find that there are topics like varnashrama being discussed here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is mainly for the uti, inclination or proclivity. Okay. Fifth one is Ishanu Katha. Ishanu Katha means the science of God. Incarnations of the Supreme Lord and his different activities together with his activities of his great devotees. So why all this discussed Ishanu Katha is what? The stories of the Lord incarnations and the stories of the Lord's devotees. And why all these stories are important? Any guesses? Vrindavaneshwari Mataji, can you guess why these stories, why all this record of discussions about Supreme Lord and his devotees is important?
Firstly, they are historical, like they tell us about the history of the creation.
What is the spiritual benefit?
Spiritual benefit is they take us back to Krishna.
Yeah, come to the point. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah neti mameti swarjana tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti swarjana.
Yes.
Why my janma karma are divya? If you read these stories, if you learn about the janma, the karma of Lord and his devotees, they have the spiritual potency to give you the love of God. That is the mystery. That is why it is mentioned as rahasyam. That is the mystery. Sometimes people don't believe it. How can simply reading and understanding the stories can take us to Godhead? Actually, that is a devotional limb, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and all that. So if you do that, you understand the science of God, and you go back to Godhead. So that is, they need to be heard very respectfully, in a very devotional mood, like that, with all ears, with all attention, and all that. Go to the sixth one. So sixth one is talking about Nirodha Mukti. Nirodha Mukti is the eighth and ninth subject of Bhagavatam. Nirodha means the merging of the living entity with the mystic lying down of Mahavishnu. So annihilation of the cosmos. So in the cosmos, there are two categories of living entities: who perfect their life and go back to Godhead, and who doesn't perfect their life, still doing sense gratification, still wondering what to do in this material world, still lost. They once again go back into the body of the Mahavishnu at the time of annihilation. So that is mentioned in Nirodha. And then Mukti. Mukti means those who go back to Godhead, liberation. So permanent situation of the living entities form. So Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthi. Vyavasthiti. Hitva anyatha rupam. Hitva anyatha rupam means when mukti happens, the living entity gives the material bodies. Material body means the gross body made up of earth, water, air, fire, ether, and giving up the subtle body made up of sat, chid, made up of intelligence, false ego, and mind. Man, buddhi, ahankar. That is the subtle body. So he gives up two bodies which are material at the time of mukti and gets a more permanent body, one his rupena. Swarupena vyavasthitihi. So those who liberate, they get their permanent body and leave their impermanent body behind, like that. And go to the seventh verse, which is the last verse for today. Ashraya, the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction of universe, who is also known as Paramatma and Parabrahma. It is referring mainly to Lord Sri Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna, the cause of creation, Janmadyasya Yataha, like the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. So 9 topics are described to illuminate the 10th, the shelter of all. Factual understanding of the first 9 will facilitate our understanding of Lord Krishna. So the more we understand the first 9, the better we understand Lord Krishna. If you don't understand the 9 topics properly, you will miss little bit on the power of understanding the 10th topic. So therefore, the only topic of Bhagavatam is Krishna. Rest all others are meant to illuminate that 10th topic. That is how we need to understand it. So I hope the class was interesting. Also, maybe you could understand the subject matter easily. If there are any doubts or any questions, maybe we can discuss now. And it is now the time to assign the various services to our devotees. So Rakesh ji mentioned that the Mangalacharan will be done by Jivan Prabhu, right?
Yes, Guru.
Okay, any questions? Meanwhile, you can check, you can ask any questions. Manish Kulkarni Prabhu will have the summary next week. Okay. Any questions? Was that clear? Rakesh ji, Vrindavaneshwari Mata ji?
Yes, Guruji.
Okay.
Did you say something, Prabhuji?
Is the class clear? Is it
Yes,
difficult,
yes, it is.
difficult
Yes.
or easy to digest?
No, no, no. Only thing is, it'll be difficult to remember the 10 topics of Srimad
No,
Bhagavatam,
remember,
but I'm going to revise.
you remember that verse? Use that verse we will remember in our shloka memorization workshop also. So that way
Okay.
also that is important. Atra sargo visargascha sthanam poshanam utaya manvantara eshanu katha nirodho muktirashraya. So
Okay.
I kind of remembered it today only.
Can you tell the number?
2.10.1.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll discuss more about these topics in detail. They are all over spread in Srimad Bhagavatam. In one particular canto, one topic might be a little more prominent. Like, for example, we discussed Sarga, Visarga. We discussed already in second canto, Sarga. Visarga, we will discuss in the second canto, but we'll also discuss a little bit in the third canto, more prominently probably in the third canto, like that. So they are spread all over Bhagavatam, but one particular topic might be more prominent in one particular canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Like, for example, I think Poshanam is mainly discussed in sixth canto, and Sthanam is mainly discussed, I think, in fifth canto. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for your presence, for your blessings, for your kind attention. Really, really honored to have a very receptive audience like you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Correction.